everyone. My name is Heather Kernahan. I want to welcome you to the Eco Fireside discussion in celebration of International Women's Day. Today, we are talking about careers, career ambition, developing and navigating our careers, and we are in conversation with two very accomplished leaders who have incredibly interesting careers from different parts of the world, and they have a lot to share. So let's get to it. I'm going to introduce you to the next 15 or 20 minutes of conversation. First, I want to welcome Enitan Kehinde, 2022 Provoke Innovator 25 and Provoke's Young Changemaker Award winner. And that award celebrates the next generation of communications leaders. So Enitan, I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and your career journey.
Thanks, Heather. My name is Enitan Kehinde, and I'm the lead consultant and general manager at BlackHouse Media UK. I started my career in PR just about less than a decade ago. I started off as an intern at BHM, so I had just finished a master's degree in public relations from the Sheffield Hallam University, and I thought to go back home to Nigeria to start off my career. I started off as an intern, and less than 2 years into the business, I got an opportunity to lead the company's FMCG portfolio. It was a large portfolio with large teams and big accounts like Coca-Cola and Heineken in Nigeria. And 2 years after that, I was, penciled to lead the UK operations of the business in the right now in the UK. So I'm now based in London, and our businesses are out of London and Edinburgh. In that time as well, I've also been passionate about building the PR industry. So I have been the lead coordinator for the Nigeria PR report. It's the only PR report out of Africa. I did that for about 5 years. And in 2020, we decided to improve the scope of the report to cover the entire African region. I've also done quite a bit of work around thought leadership for the industry. We started off the World PR Day celebration in 2020 because we realized that there wasn't any day to celebrate the profession that we were all in. There were days for advertising, there were days for digital marketing, but not much for PR. So we decided to start that day in 2020. And for the last 2 years, we've seen it grow year on year. As of last year, we had over 10,000 people participate in the celebration, which is a big deal. I pride myself in being passionate about not just the industry, but also for other young women who are trying to come into the industry. In 2020, smack in the middle of the lockdown, I was a bit confused. It's the first time we were having such an unprecedented issue affect everyone. So not just our clients, but also us as individuals, our business as well. And I wanted to learn from other women to see how they were navigating the crisis. And there was no place to go. So I decided to start a little community of women just for us to get together every other week during the lockdown, share the issues that we were going through, solutions that we could possibly share. And I found that in that moment, it was easy because you have people that are going through almost the same thing that you are. So you feel like you're not alone. There are other people that are doing the same as you, and it was easy for us to share. So that in a few minutes is me and what I've been able to do in the last 7 to 8 years.
Wow. Okay, I have a lot of questions. And before we dig into the questions, I'm going to introduce Tricia Montavalo Timm. She is a general counsel, a board member, a venture capitalist. She's out of Silicon Valley and a widely respected tech leader in the Valley. And she is an author of a book that is releasing within the next few days. You can pre-order it now. It's called Embrace the Power of You, Owning Your Identity at Work. And I'm really excited to have you here, Tricia, as part of this conversation. Tell us a little bit about your background and career journey.
Thank you, Heather, and I'm honored to be here with both of you and everybody here listening today. I am a first-generation Latina who has worked in Silicon Valley with high-tech companies for about 25 years. I've been the general counsel of companies big and small, so from small startups to large multinational global corporations. My last operational role was at a company called Looker. It was a data analytics company, which we sold to Google in 2020, right before the pandemic, for $2.6 billion. It was a large transaction that required the global antitrust approvals. I currently serve on the board of directors of a company called Salsify, which is an enterprise software company that helps brands and retailers win on the digital shelf. I also serve on 3 nonprofit boards. And as Heather mentioned, I just wrote my first book, which will be published soon. So that has taken obviously a lot of my time. And I'm the proud parent of 2 daughters. You know, I don't want to forget that piece of our careers, because that's been a joy of raising 2 daughters as a working mother throughout my career.
Yes, great. Well, thank you both. And we've got a lot of questions and probably about 20 minutes. So I'll just watch the time as we go through. But the first question, which is a big one, I'll admit, is looking at goals. So you were both incredibly accomplished leaders in your areas of business, and assuming you've set really big goals for yourselves. And one of the questions I have is, have you always wanted to be in leadership positions? Was that part of what you set out to do within your career? Or did opportunities come your way that made you realize, oh, there's potential for me to develop into leadership position? Enitan, maybe we'll start with you on that one, because you moved very quickly through the early part of your career journey. It sounds like within 4 years, you were running the London operation or the UK operation for your business.
Yes, I would say that I've always had a strong desire to make an impact. And I found that the easiest way to do that is to do that from a leadership position. I'm not the first person that you'd think would be a leader, but I found that if I wanted to make a difference, I needed to be in the driver's seat, which is what I did. So 2 years into during my internship, the first thing I thought of was, how do I make this experience easier for me? And that's been my driving motto for everything that I've done in my career. I'm an intern, I'm new in the business. And, you know, I want to make it easier for me, not just for me, but everyone else that's coming behind me. So everything that I tried to do was to make sure that I was putting myself in a position to be able to make that difference, right? And I've also always thought that, you know, if I'm going to do something, I also need to do it very well. My mom always used to tell me, anything worth doing, you have to do it really well. So I thought the first thing I have to do to be able to make an impact here is to be able to put myself in a position where I can make a difference. So after being in several positions where I could gain the kind of experience that I needed, I decided to also go into leadership roles. An opportunity came up to lead the FMCG portfolio at BHM, and I took it up and I'm like, okay, you know what? I have to make a success of this. And just off of that opportunity, I got the opportunity to lead the business in the UK as well. I find that when you actually make a success of something, that you put your mind to, others remember you for other opportunities. So that opens all of the doors, I think.
And with the FMCG role, did they bring that opportunity to you, or did you see that it opened up and you decided to go and apply for it and have a conversation?
Well, it did open up, yes. It opened up and I decided to apply, yes.
Okay, great. Tricia, what about you? How was leadership part of your goals from early on in your career? Was it something that developed over time?
I would say it's something that developed over time, although I think that the seed was planted with my mother. My mother is from El Salvador, and she had encouraged me from a young age to go into law, to be a leader. She said I could be just like him. Her grandfather was a lawyer back in El Salvador. And this is unique because culturally, in the Latino culture, women, you know, are expected to be mothers and caretakers, and rising to leadership positions is not always encouraged. So watching her, she also moved into leadership within her role in the banking industry. So I think watching her go into that leadership position really inspired me without really consciously knowing that. I've also been a competitor. You know, I see challenges and I want to meet them. People underestimate me all the time, and I like to prove them wrong. And so there's something about me that's always like, oh, you don't think I can do that? I'll show you that I can do it. And so I think my personality is such that I've always looked for the next thing that's hard, or especially the next thing where I'm not represented. Latinos in the US are some of the most underrepresented people in leadership position in the C-suite, in the boardroom, entrepreneurs. And when I see that statistic, it's just, there's something in me that says I need to change that statistic. So I think unconsciously, I'm always sort of looking to do that. But because of that personality type, you know, opportunities, when they opened up and they showed themselves to me, I took them. So I had a lot of men in my career that called me when opportunities came up at their companies and brought opportunities to me, and I sort of stepped up to that.
I think I have to add to something that Tricia said. She mentioned her mom, and I also mentioned my mom as well. I think having the right kind of guidance and the right kind of support also helps as well.
It really does. Yeah, the power of a mom, right? Telling you,
Yeah.
if it's worth
that you
doing,
can
do
do
it
it.
right and think bigger. Yes, yes. My
Mhm.
mom used to say, anything, you can be anything you want to be. And
Yeah.
probably one of my issues as I went through my career was not really understanding what was possible for me. And when I had decided at one point in my career I wanted to be a chief marketing officer. And when I looked at what that role took, I saw a lot of people did their MBAs. So that's why I went back to school to do my master's, to be trained to be a CMO. And I had a professor in a finance class, say to me, well, Heather, when you're the CEO, here are the things you need to be looking at in the financials. And I said, well, I'm here to be a CMO. And he goes, no, you're being trained to be a CEO. And it was shocking to me. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh, wow, I wasn't thinking big enough about what was possible. And I feel that's often part of leadership's role in businesses, especially with underrepresented parts of our population, is to go to those individuals and say, here's what's possible for you. You might not be
Yeah.
thinking about it, but I want you to think about that. And I feel like for all of us, that's probably happened in our career. Someone's pointed out something bigger for us.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Heather. That's happened to me. And now I do it to others. Some women that I know in my life, in my career, same thing. I said to someone recently, you need to be I see you being a CEO. So let's, how can you do that? And she didn't see herself in that way either.
Yeah, also building yourself up as a role model as well. I
Yes.
find that having been an example and showing other women what is actually possible also opens their eyes up to, yeah, I didn't know I could do that. She's doing that. I think I could also do that as well.
Yeah,
I think that also helps as well.
Yes,
absolutely.
it does. Okay, so to get to the positions that we have all achieved and we're in today, you need a lot of confidence and you need a lot of resiliency. And it's a topic of conversation among many women group that I'm part of, is how do we build the confidence and resiliency, especially in times of transformation of the economy. Right now, society and economy is going through so many transformations. Can both of you talk about how you build confidence and resiliency, and how you keep your resiliency strong through leadership challenges that you incur?
I think for me personally, what I've tried to do is to put my plan down on paper. I find that working in PR, we do a lot of plans for the business, for our clients, for everyone we work for, but not necessarily for ourselves. A lot of young women don't take themselves to be that serious. I didn't know I could do a plan for myself. I didn't know I could map out the next 10, 20 years of my life. So what I did, I think about 5, 6, 7 years ago, was to actually put my plan down on paper and then break them down into little milestones. And then when I achieve a milestone, I actually celebrate that milestone, because it takes a lot, right, to build yourself up to that point. And you also don't want to keep thinking about the issues and keep thinking about the problems and not actually celebrating the little wins and the little steps that you're taking to get yourself to where it is that you want to go. And then learning from those experiences as well, because sometimes we make mistakes. And I personally do that as well, where I beat myself down about it. And I literally am my biggest critic, and I'm saying, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. So talking yourself up is also very important, right? Saying, okay, this happened, I made a mistake here, but this is the lesson I need to take away from this experience. I'm making sure that you don't make that mistake again. Putting that basically engraving it in your brain that, okay, yes, this has happened. That's fine. Give yourself that grace, show yourself that love, but make sure that you learn that lesson and don't repeat that mistake again. And also surrounding yourself with positive, positive experiences and good people that could sort of encourage you and nudge you on, because half the time we all don't wake up all chirpy and happy every single day. I don't think that happens with anyone. There are days where you wake up and you're really quite low and you're just like, why am I doing this today? Why am I even getting up in the first place? Having that positive reinforcement, having positive encouragement around you would also help as well. And I think it motivates me every single day. I have my mom, I have my husband, I have people to just tell me, oh, you're the best thing in the world. And sometimes all you just need to hear is that one sentence and you're good to go for the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love everything that you said. And I like to celebrate your wins. That was actually a lesson I learned on the author journey. My editor said, she has this saying of, we need to celebrate with cake for every small little win you make on the journey, because it's a long journey. And I love that analogy for our careers as well. The other thing I do around sort of that planning is because I have some imposter syndrome, and a lot, and I forget some of my accomplishments, especially over 2 decades. And so I have created a running list of here are the things that I've done, here are the accomplishments, because when you get in that moment where you feel like you don't belong in the room, or you feel that, fraud feeling, if you just look at your list, like just look at it, and your degrees and your titles and the projects and the teams you've led, it doesn't lie. It looks right back at you, and you say, yeah, that I have accomplished. There's a reason that I am being asked for this next role or the next leadership position. And then I will just, double down around the surrounding yourself with people that support you. I have a chapter in my book called Find Your People. And that's from your personal champion, like you're a family member or partner. Therapist can be somebody who is only advocating for you, a mentor or sponsor. And then even communities of or organizations of your shared identity. Because sometimes if you're the first or the few or the only in the room, you feel very lonely. And being, finding people that have that shared identity who can validate, the experiences that you're having, that you're not invisible. I know for me, women's organizations have been huge. Just realizing that some of the things I'm experiencing, I'm not the only one experiencing them. It really builds that confidence, builds that community to go back into the, into those challenging moments, and knowing that you have this community of support behind you.
Yeah, love that. Okay, I'm going to move on to systemic change, because we as leaders have to bring quite a lot of change to the organizations we're part of, society we're part of. And Enitan, you yesterday talked about a change that you were bringing into your business around women and PMS days off. Maybe you can tell us that story, because that's a different way of thinking about women in the workplace, and it was really inspiring. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so in my position, I've been sort of fortunate to work with women that are very open to sharing. And I think it's the culture that I've built around my team. Everyone's open to saying, this is what I'm going through. And we work remotely. So I'd like to encourage people to actually speak up. I'm actually going through this. I'm not sure how to handle it. And I've tried to find or try to building a solution that's custom made for that problem, if it's possible, right? And one thing that has come up frequently is the issue of PMS, and just going through that cycle of every single month and not having some time to yourself to actually deal with that. Because for some people it's more serious, and for some people it's not as bad. So if you're not open, if you don't open yourself up to the fact that it actually could be horrible for someone else, then if you don't put yourself in that person's shoes, you don't actually realize how bad it can get. So I just decided, we need to find a way to building this free time for women that actually need the time. You don't have to take it every month. You can take it if you want to, but at least you know that it's there and you can actually use it.
That is a big change. And I think there's more systemic change that's happening across businesses all over the world. And often the change comes up against power structures. And Tricia, you being in tech companies for so long, there's lots of different power structures that exist from startups and big global power structures. Have you had any experience with navigating power structures at any point in your career, and any advice you can share?
Yes, and just to reflect on what Enitan is saying, is that is the role model of inclusive leadership, what she just said. And I think that it's important, the way she's looking at managing her team and leading is outside, like it may not be my lived experience, but it may be somebody else's. I'm curious about it and learning. And I think I don't want to forget that piece, because I think when we enter into those leadership roles, have an opportunity to make change. But yes, most of my career, I was the only woman in the room in very male-dominated leadership teams. So, I would say there's two schools of thought on how to navigate change within an organization when you are, don't have the power and influence. One is working within the system and making changes by building relationships, creating allyships. And another is challenging the system. And I don't think there's a right or wrong, to be honest. I've had a lot of conversations with people around this. I tend to be, because I, early in my career did not have the choice to really challenge systems. I was the sole breadwinner. I couldn't really risk losing my job. So I had to sort of learn how to work within the system. That's my default personality now when I start to hit some of those challenges. But I think that challenging the system head on is also necessary in the workplace as well. That is faster. When you go head on and you challenge a system, you will see change faster. And I think, I see, especially with our younger generation, really advocating and being more activist, that's creating better workplaces. So for me, and when I worked within the system, if you will, I looked to I did a lot of listening and learning. I looked in my environment to see who are those that have positions of power and influence, what are they like, and start really intentionally building relationships to the people that knew me, that understood my work, spent some time building trust with them, building real authentic personal relationships. And once you build that trust and an authentic relationship, then they will be your ally when a situation comes up, or when you have a particular idea that you want to create a change in the company. They now support you because they've built the trust, they have the relationship, and they can help you work around whatever systems might be in place that might be blocking you. You now have somebody to give you support and moving that forward. So those are some of the strategies that I use.
Okay. Yes, that's such a rich issue in and of itself. How do you build that allyship within the organizations that you work in? And Enitan, I see you doing that with some of the programs outside of your day-to-day work. You're doing that, it sounds like, within society, within governments, within different organizations. Have you had any other different experiences with trying to create change within a topic area and power structures? Anything to share?
Yes, I have. Not just within BHM, but generally, because, for example, we've been building World PR Day for the last 2 years.
Right.
And one thing that's very, very important, and I think even in encountering business CEOs and people from all over the world, because we have to deal with from India, from Australia, everywhere. One thing that's always very clear for me is to actually have a plan of action. Sometimes it's not just about having an idea or just having something that just pops up in your head. You need to be able to explain what it is that you're trying to do. Why is it important? What are the goals you're trying to achieve as well? Some people want to know, what are you trying to achieve? How does that help me as a person or as a business? And then also communicating and collaborating as well. For World PR Day, we're collaborating with PR associations across the world. From India, we have an association in India, in Germany, across different regions, just making sure that we have a representative for every group of people, for every type of organization that there is, and also monitoring progress as well. I wouldn't just drop an idea and just walk away. You actually have to come back to actually check how is this working out? What do we need to change? What do we need to optimize? What do we need to even take out altogether? Never be afraid to turn down something that isn't working, right? If it's not working, it's not working. Let's find a way to fix it and then move on to something else. But in pushing for systemic change, you just need to make sure that you, like Tricia also said, you also have to partner with the right kind of people, right? Who are the people that have a voice in this thing that you're trying to push? How can they help? Even within BHM as well, even with the position that I have, I also, when I want to pitch something, I also have to find people that also would believe in this idea, such that when we're taking it to management, it's a no-brainer. They have to say yes, because we have the right kind of people on board. We have the ideas, we have the plans, we have everything. All you just have to do is say yes, and we're ready to go. But you can't just come up with an idea without having a plan.
And I like what you just said, Enitan, before you go to that final meeting, you've done the work beforehand. You've circled around the table, to the extent there are any challenges that show up, you're dealing with them before you get to that final sort of decision-making table. And so there's that pre-work that I don't think anyone ever taught me. And so it's an important thing to learn.
Yeah.
No one taught me that either. And for many years, I would get turned down on ideas. And someone finally pulled me aside and said, "Are you having the meetings before the meeting?" And I said, "What the heck is that? What are meetings before the meeting?" And they said, your vision is there, but you're not doing that coalition work and the planning and getting everybody lined up so that when you're in the room, it's really just a final sign off. I didn't know that. And then I got really, really good at that. So we're telling everyone watching this today, you need to do all the work before the big meetings to get ready to go and just get signed off. And
get all the answers to all of the possible questions. Yeah.
Do it all.
Mhm.
Meetings before the meetings. Okay.
The meeting
Just
before
a-
the meeting.
A couple of last ones. Imposter syndrome. One of you mentioned it already. It comes up a lot in conversations with women leaders that no matter what level you are, you feel imposter syndrome. Tricia, I think it was you that said it earlier.
Mhm.
How do you
Mhm.
navigate your way through that? Because there's many different circumstances in which we all feel imposter syndrome. Any tips?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, Heather, I still have imposter syndrome. I actually thought I had sort of combated it, once I had reached my top spot as a general counsel. And then when I pivoted to look for a board seat, all those feelings of not being good enough came back. And so I had to sort of relearn again some of the strategies. And I think the first thing is to just even notice that you have imposter syndrome. I didn't even realize what this term was and what those feelings might be. But it's really this internal dialogue that you're having with yourself, that little voice inside that is saying, someone's going to find out that I don't have the qualifications, or someone's going to realize that I, how did I get into this room? And so just really noticing that what you're saying to yourself, and catching yourself and giving yourself grace that, oh, okay, it's back. But that's not true. Let me again to that list, right? One of the strategies was to look back at my list and yes, here are all the accomplishments that I've made and done in the world. There is a reason I'm being asked for this role or why I'm in that room. So that was one strategy. And the second strategy I use around combating negative self-talk is something called mental time travel, which is when you're in the moment, that situation might feel really important and really big, but you give it perspective and you say, how am I going to feel next week, next month, in 1 year, in 10 years? And all of a sudden, it doesn't feel so big and so heavy, and that lightens the load a little bit. And so you feel a little bit more comfortable and kind of letting that negative thought sort of dissipate a little bit. So I do that a lot, and it seems to work for me.
Enitan, anything to add?
I would say imposter syndrome can sort of be like a barrier to growth, especially for young people like me who have sort of achieved considerable success and accomplishments in such a short time. I find that with technology, you have a lot of younger women achieving quite a lot in a very short frame of time. And what that does is it leads to imposter syndrome, because you're thinking that might just be a fluke, that might just be a miracle from God. I'm sure after a while they realize I'm not who I say I am, and it's going to be a big problem. But one thing that I've done for myself is to actually center myself. So I decided to build a better relationship with God. I decided to challenge all of the negative self-talk that I would do to myself, because I'm my biggest critic. Half the time I'm saying, before anyone says anything to me, I have reeled out everything that's wrong with that situation. And then I just thought, you know what? I need to find out why I'm doing this. I need to find a way to get rid of it. I'm not actively 100% rid of it yet, but I know when I'm doing it to myself, I'm now more self-aware, and I can sort of walk away from that situation. Half the time it's just taking a walk, half the time is watching a TV show and coming back to the situation later. And like Tricia said, you wake up the next day and not even remember why you felt that way in the first place. You can't even remember 2 weeks later and you're like, why was I panicking so much? Why was this such a big deal to me? I don't even remember. But one thing that I did, like I mentioned earlier, was in 2020, I just needed to not feel alone. With the lockdown and with everything that was going on, it was almost like, I was living alone as well. I'm like, oh gosh, this is too much. And then you're also advising clients as well. Your clients are panicking. You can't be seen to be panicking, because it's almost like you're supposed to be encouraging me. And I was panicking as well. So I just needed to have, community of women that we could sort of discuss these things with. And that helped me see that I'm not alone. There are hundreds of us that are going through the exact same things. And we just have to sort of persevere and just share experiences as well. Once you hear 1 or 2 people speak on the same thing, you realize, okay, yes, I can do this in my situation, or I can take this to fit where I am. But it's just having that community, I believe, helps. And then one thing I also learned is to also just be patient with yourself. You're not perfect. You don't know everything. This is happening to you for you to learn something. So just take that lesson and learn it, and just be gentle with yourself. The way you would show empathy to someone else, you need to show that to yourself as well. And one thing very important, just celebrate your milestones as well. Once you celebrate things, you just realize. Sometimes I just buy myself a box of pizza. I'm like, yes, I had a great day today. Or a bowl of ice cream. Yes, I had a great day today. I need to celebrate that. Just little things just help you feel better.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
and
so important.
I like that you asked the question, Heather, because oftentimes when you see accomplished women and their resumes, you don't realize that they have imposter syndrome. And so for just normalizing that feeling, when you as a person who's starting their career, don't feel alone. So I'm glad that you asked that question.
Yes, to be clear, everyone has imposter syndrome. I'm sure
Yes.
of it. Everyone. Maybe 1% of people don't, but everyone does have it at some point, no matter what stage of their career. Okay, final two questions. Any last advice for the next generation of women leaders who are going to be listening to this today?
I would say to challenge, coming from the previous question, just challenge every negative thought you have. You might think you're horrible, but you're not as bad. If it's anxiety, if it's worry, it's fear, it's concern, challenge it. Ask yourself why. Why am I feeling this way? Why is this feeling here? And then also just always bet on yourself as well. Take risks. You can't get to a position that you've never achieved if you don't actually bet on yourself, if you don't actually chase your dreams. There's something my boss used to say, that every and anything is possible. I don't think Beyonce, for example, knew she was going to be who she is right now when she was just a child, right? So you can dream to be whoever. You can dream to be the CEO of Google for whatever reason, whatever dream you have, you can actually achieve it. But actually bet on yourself, push yourself there, and then break those big dreams into small buckets. Because when you look at a big dream, it looks so big and unachievable. When you break them down and you say, okay, in the next 2 years, I need to be here so I can go here. When you break them down to little milestones like that, it's easier for you to get through. And then just staying focused on them as well and never giving up. There are days where you would definitely have horrible days or bad days, but just know that, yes, I'm going through this now because this is where I'm going, right? I'm believing in yourself all of the time. You would have people or you have situations that would challenge you and make you feel like you're not doing the right thing. But once you remember why you're doing this in the first place, it's easier for you to put yourself back on track, right? And then surrounding yourself with empowering people as well. That's very, very important. It could be a mentor, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be a partner, sometimes it could be a dog. I had a dog back in Nigeria, and she would just sit next to you and make you feel like the best thing in the world. Sometimes you just need that little, encouragement that just makes you feel like, yes, I'm doing the right thing. And then just taking time as well to develop yourself. You might know a lot now, but you also don't know everything you need to know to prepare yourself for the next position or for the next step. So self-development is very important. Where is it that you're going? Who's already there? What has that person done? And that's why I really like LinkedIn. It's very easy to see what people have actually done to get themselves to where it is that they have gotten to. And then you can sort of position yourself in that same space as well. And another important thing is learning from your mistakes. We make mistakes all the time. We beat ourselves down about it, but we actually don't remember what it is we're supposed to learn from that situation. So learning from mistakes, and then also being your own best mentor. You can have mentors all around. You can have family members encouraging you. But if you don't believe in yourself, it's very difficult for you to propel yourself forward. So be your own mentor. Remember the errors, remember the mistakes, but also praise the wins and encourage yourself all along the journey.
And celebrate. Okay, Enitan, you have a book in you. I don't know if you're thinking about writing a book, but Tricia and I can help you. If you'd like to do it, just like all of those pieces of advice alone, wouldn't you say, Tricia? Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that's like a master's class on advice for women who are starting.
I would definitely
or in the middle of their careers.
Would you?
Yes,
okay,
I would.
Good.
Yes, I would.
You'd consider writing a book. All right, we're going to get you on track for that. Okay, Tricia, advice for the next generation of women leaders.
I loved all that advice, and I would say, and it was so inspiring to hear you say the words, you can be anything you want to be. And I think that my best advice for female leaders right now is, bring your authentic self to work. There are so many messages we receive, either from our culture, our media, our workplace, our friends, our colleagues, that may say that we're not enough, we're different. Somehow you may feel like another. You may feel like you need to show up in the workplace a certain way because that's what the dominant culture might look like. And what happens over time is when you adapt or change who you are, over years, it takes an emotional toll on you. And so it's not good for your health. But more importantly, we need that authentic person in the room. We need to have that unique perspective, that unique voice in the room, so that we start changing what we see out in the media. So that we start creating products and services that serve all communities and all identities. And so it's so important, not only for ourselves, so that we can feel good about ourselves as we show up, but for our society as a whole. So, my mission in life is really to help those that might be struggling to belong and fit in, so that they can get on the other side of their fears to show up in the workplace authentically.
Love it. Great advice. Thank you both. And one last question while we wrap up. What are you watching, reading, or listening to that you recommend for women navigating their careers?
I think I really love taking in content. I'm always online. I'm always watching movies, reading, listening to podcasts and stuff. But one very good podcast that I'm listening to all of the time every week is A Leader Like Me. It's done every week by Advaita Patel and Priya Bates. There's also Woman Evolved by Sarah Jakes Roberts, very powerful podcast. And then I've read almost every leadership book there is, especially the ones written for women, because I felt I needed to find the secret weapon to actually, ruling this world of business. But there are a couple of books that actually stick to my mind. Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In is a very good book. Idra Nui's My Life in Full is also a very good book. And then there's a book by Marshall Goldsmith. I think it's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yes, that's a good one.
So that's a very good book as well. And there's another book that I really like. It's by Vive Grosskamp. She's German, I think. It's called Lift as You Climb. So it's sort of a book to help you bring other women up as you also go up in your career. And 4 other books that I really like are Will by Will Smith. There's some powerful lessons in that book. Finding Me by Viola Davis as well. And Michelle Obama's 2 books, Becoming and The Light We Carry. Those are really good books. Those are really good books. And then for women from underrepresented communities, there are 2 movies that I really love. The Woman King, I think that's Viola Davis' movie. And King of Boys is also a Nigerian movie. Those 2 movies they sort of help your confidence. They make you, as an African woman, they make you understand why you need to be proud of who you are and where you're from. Those are really life-changing movies as well.
Great list.
That's a great list. Yes. So, for me, the Brene Brown's work from her TED Talk on vulnerability and Dare to Lead and Gifts of Imperfection, all of her books, I thought really helped into developing as an authentic leader. I would also say for women of color, The First, The Few, and The Only by Deepa Persistamam. And I would be remiss not to say my book.
Yes.
Embrace the Power of You, Owning Your Identity at Work. I've spent a lot of time building on not only my career, but the experiences of executives. So lots of stories to really help everyone who, is struggling to figure out their way and how they want to show up in their careers.
Well, that is what I've been reading, Tricia's book. Go pre-order it or order it. It might be live now, depending on when you watch this. Order that book. There are many stories that are very helpful for anybody who feels that they are an other where they work in the world, and just a lot to learn from it. So that is my recommendation too. And Tricia and I are part of a group that are women who are writing their first business books. And part of that is to change the landscape of who is quoted and who is on stage and who gets interviewed by the media. We definitely want more women business leaders writing books so that they can have that level of authority and the right place in the boardroom. I sit in lots of boardrooms where there's never a woman quoted on any slide. It's all men leaders. So we're going to change that. And Tricia's book is the first in a long group. And Enitan, we're going to get you in that pipeline now of book writers, business book writers. You're with us, which I'd love to do. Yes. So, well, thank you for the conversation today. I'm walking away, and I hope everyone else is feeling like every role is possible. Every opportunity is possible. Whatever you dream, or maybe even what you don't know yet, you can do. It is possible for you. There's a plan to get there. You can accomplish it and be as ambitious as you want in your career. It doesn't mean it will be easy. And there will be full of challenges and power structures and imposter syndrome, but it is possible to work it through. And so if you're watching today, please follow these 2 women on their social media channels. They talk a lot about life and business and career ambition. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Heather.
Okay, bye.
Bye.